Today, we're talking about home buying preparation. Now, in today's competitive market, most buyers are making costly mistakes that keep them from getting their dream home. And the truth is, there are insider strategies that successful buyers are using to win with their offers in this market. Now, whether this is your first time buying or your fifth, I know as soon as you implement these 5 steps, I guarantee you will feel more prepared than you did before. Now, the most important step is actually all about your future needs. Now, in our guide, where we talk about future conversations, 4 or 5 critical conversations you have to have before moving, one of these things is knowing who you will be in the future. So I want you to think of this kind of like buying some shoes for your kid, because honestly, 4 months from now, they're gonna outgrow those shoes. And like you, I do not want to buy shoes every single 4 months for my children. So we buy them too big and they'll flop around, but it'll be okay. Not saying you should buy a house that can flop around, because that's weird, but knowing who you are now and knowing who you will be in the future, or who you want to be in the future for your family, for you, that is super, super, super important. This is a little bit of vision casting for you and your family. Now, there are 5 key questions that I'm gonna walk you through that kind of help uncover a little bit of this exact thing, right? Of who you are going to become. So the first essential question is, what age will you and everyone else in your home be in 5 years? Now, I know when I ask myself this question, I kind of get a little bit overwhelmed, because right now my daughter's 14 and I have a daughter that's 12. So thinking about moving, we probably aren't in the space to think about moving. However, 2-3 years ago, we did this exact thing. And when they were 12 and 10, 11 and 9, I could think ahead and saying, okay, if she's 12 now and we got 10-year-old, we're gonna have a 15 and a 17-year-old. I mean, that's a completely different life stage. So we gotta think about potentially drivers in our house. We gotta think about high schoolers. We gotta think about how do we interact with their friends, right? You might have a 5 and a 2-year-old right now. Well, your 5-year-old in 5 years is gonna be 10. And your 2-year-old, simple math, is gonna be 7. And a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old is very, very different than a 5 and a 2-year-old, right? So thinking about where their bedroom's gonna be. Are you gonna try to shove them into the basement? Well, that's not gonna work, because I don't know an 8-year-old that's willingly going into the basement by themselves every single night. Now, 12, 10, probably, but thinking about those things now is super, super important, and imagining what it's gonna be like living with you and your future versions of yourselves and your children. Now, the second essential question is, what grades or phases of life will you be at? Well, it goes right with the first question. Are they gonna be in high school? Are they gonna be gone? Are they gonna are you needing to make a change now? And in 5 years, your kids are out, right? So you gotta think about that. You don't necessarily want to make a move every 5 or 7 years. However, most people do. So I think that's really, really important to think through that. Question number 3 is, will they be moving out? Will you be starting a family around that time? Maybe you could be on the opposite side of the spectrum, where you're just getting married right now. And in 5 years, you could plan on having kids. That's the plan, right? Doesn't mean it's going to happen for sure, but you might want it to happen. Now, the 4th question that's really essential, thinking about your future self, is, where do you hope to be working? Now, as the last 5 years and our pandemic has proved, you can't be guaranteed what's gonna happen with that. You might become self-employed, you might start working from home, you might be kicked out of your home and having to go back to work, like many, many, many people are right now. So thinking about that as well, where do you think you might be working? Could you see yourself in what you're doing in 5 years? That would be a better way to ask that. And the last questions, are there activities that you are doing now that you will want to keep doing? Outdoor activities, biking, things like that. Are those things you want to keep doing? Or are there any new activities that you could see yourself wanting to do? Well, maybe you want to be a little bit closer to the mountains. Maybe you want to be closer to water. So moving into a lake community is really, really important. Or being able to get access to the highways to get out of the city is important. Or maybe you just want to be close to an urban center. Maybe that's something, right? Maybe you want to be closer to groceries so you can walk more despite minus 25 weather someday, right? Whatever that is, what do you want, right? Thinking of your future self is going to be really, really important. Now, the second big thing we want to talk about is understanding your finances. Now, I get it. Okay, finances. It's always a topic when you're preparing to buy a property, but you need money. So you kind of have to talk about finances, right? So the thing that's interesting about finances is many people believe because I have a mortgage on my current home and I'm moving up to a new property that I'll just get approved for another mortgage. That isn't always true. Just because you have a mortgage doesn't mean you will be automatically approved for a mortgage. So understanding the basics and talking to your bank and your broker about what it is your shopping budget is and having that security, because we have watched so many people walk into situations where they didn't really plan, right? They didn't really plan and now they're going conditional and they need to have a tight conditions on financing. Well, the bank isn't going to get this done in 2 or 3 days. So you need to make sure that you end up having enough time and you prep yourself for this. Again, just because you have a mortgage doesn't mean you'll easily get another mortgage. You have to qualify with income, with the interest rates, with debt. All of these things have to come into play. So making sure that that foundation is really, really solid, that for sure is number 2. So the third big tip is actually all about understanding your market. Now, whether you're in Calgary, whether you're in Airdrie, whether you're in another country, knowing what your market is doing is really, really important. Now, there's a couple key variables that we always talk about and we always look at to help understand the market. So sometimes as an agent, we end up walking into a neighborhood that we haven't done a transaction in a long time. There is one key metric that can help kind of explain and describe what the feeling is like in the market. And I want to share it with you how you come up with that number. And if you're an agent, please use it. It helps your clients. And if you're needing someone who understands how to do that, reach out to us. We're in Calgary. But the thing that is really, really important is months of inventory. And you've probably heard of it. Basically what you do is you take how many homes are currently for sale right now, and then you look backwards over the last 30 or 90 days and you look at how many homes sold that are the similar criteria to what is active right now. And basically you kind of do some math, the sales divided by the actives, and it comes out with a number. And this is the number of months of inventory. So for example, easy numbers, we have 5 townhomes in a single community that are for sale. Okay, so we use the exact same equation because you're buying a townhome. So you're buying that townhome, you look backwards and say over the last 30 days, there was 10 sales. Well, if there's 10 sales and there's only 5 active over the last 30 days, that would be a half a month of inventory, 0.5. But if there was only 1 sale and there's 5 actives over the last 30 days, well, now you have 5 months of inventory. So where this number lands is really, really important because it tells you what type of market you are in. And if you do 90 days versus 30 days, that actually helps you give you a little bit of a bigger picture versus just a 30-day number. And so anything between 2.5 and 4 months of inventory is a balanced market where it's good for buyers and sellers. If it's above 4, you're sitting in buyer's market. If it's below that, you're sitting in a seller's market. So this is how you actually calculate months of inventory. And it's really, really helpful. Now, to slide in kind of a 3.2, 3.1, 3A section, it's actually I want to talk about buying first or selling first. Because understanding the market, if you are planning on selling your property and buying your property, and knowing the months of inventory, that combined together is really, really valuable when it comes to trying to figure out, should you sell first or should you go buy first? So if you are sitting in a buyer's market, right? A buyer's market for your home that you need to sell, and you're trying to buy in an area that's more of a balanced or seller's market, well, you should probably try selling your house first, right? Because it's slower. it's slower for you. When you are on the selling side and it's a buyer's market, it's slower for you. So you're gonna either have to like really aggressively put your price down, you're gonna sit longer days on the market, you have to do something to stand out because there's less demand for your product type, and vice versa for the other side. So knowing this number actually helps you create a strategy to being able to properly position yourself, whether you should buy first, sell first, and understanding the market conditions and what is happening. So if these tips are helpful for you, all of these tips are in our guides. So if you jump in the description, you can go to our content library and download any of these guides for free. And all of this information plus so much more is in there. But the fourth big tip that I have for you is making sure you do not think that your next home is going to be your forever home. Many people have said to us when they're looking and they're buying a property, they have said, you know what? This place is gonna be my forever home. So I'm okay with spending a little bit more or, whatever it is, but it's probably not. Most people do not live in a home forever. I mean, the truth be told is many people are married and every 5 or 7 years, life changes. Your kids change every 5 or so years, right? So if you got married, in about 5 or so years, you might have kids. And every 5 or so years, those kids are gonna start going to school. 5 or so years after that, those kids might be leaving that house or they're going to college or university. Or 5 or so years after that, if they're at university, they might be moving on to something else and leaving. All of those stages need different needs. And so thinking that you're going to move into something that's gonna be a forever house, it's not gonna happen. I've been married for 20 years this year, 21 years in 2025 coming up, and we have moved 5 times in our marriage, 4 times in our marriage. So we've moved a little bit more than some other people for sure have. But at the end of the day, that's a part of what's happening, right? And you might say, well, it's easy for you. You're a realtor. You can just move. Well, it's true. I'm also the one negotiating on my own behalf, so that doesn't always work sometimes either. I'm a little emotionally invested to the outcome of that one. But at the end of the day, moving every 5 or 7 years for sure is something that a lot of people do. Think of it this way. It's kind of like your first car. It was probably pretty gross. You really liked it, and it doesn't need to be perfect, but it was yours. And you cherished that old car, that first car. So if you're buying your first home, don't think that it's going to be your forever home, right? There is something in our market, specifically in Calgary, now that has happened that it has not happened before, where there is a property ladder system. And that property ladder system has actually created, I think, some stress on some first-time buyers, where they are hoping and wanting to get into a detached home first, when reality is their shopping budget and everything else is pointing towards something smaller. So don't be afraid to get into a property, grow some equity, see how that works. You might decide you don't even love this location, and then you end up buying a detached home in 5 years. So consider just making these small steps, and you're not gonna jump to that forever home right away. So one of the guides that a lot of people download is this one right here, and it's called 7 Biggest Mistakes to Hiring a Realtor. And in here, we have 7 big mistakes, and I'm gonna run through them really quickly for you. But if this is something that's important, I'm not gonna go deep dive, but just so you understand what's in here and some things to consider. Now, the first mistake that a lot of people make is choosing a family friend. And we hear this a lot, and we've had a lot of clients come to us after they did that transaction and say, I shouldn't have done that, which is fine. I'm family friends with other people and I haven't been chosen for that reason. It's too personal, right? Whatever it is. But that could be something, could be avoided. So just because they're a family friend or you know them, they may not be the best suited agent for you. Another one that we come across a lot is agents choose someone because they're the local expert, right? They get flyers in the mail, they get radio ads, whatever it is. But because they see them and they're doing marketing doesn't mean they're necessarily the best. And so it's like this. Just because you're watching me and our team doesn't mean we are the best for you. So do some research, look at them online, talk to others who have worked with them, and truth be told, do a bunch of interviews. Interview agents to see who has the best fit for you. And if you're focusing on how much they cost, that is also going to kind of put you in a downward spiral. If you're trying to get money back and kickbacks from an agent, say, hey, I'll use you, but I want money back because you're getting so much commission, well, that's not going to work either. The person you are hiring isn't going to be the best that you could probably find. So thinking through these things and having a real approach that really helps you understand, like an agent that helps you understand what you could look at and they kind of push back on what it is, that's really important. And another massive situation that's coming up right now is mortgage renewals. So if you have a home that you were living in and you don't fully know if you should move or if you should just renew your mortgage, check out this video here and we'll see you there.